am I going to be here? There's giving and giving and giving to people, because it's almost like an issue with empaths.
If everyone's satisfied with you,
yeah.
you're doing something wrong as well.
Exactly. People aren't going to like me. I'm not going to fit in. And it's kind of in human nature to want to fit in.
When you start to set healthy boundaries, it gets easier by time.
Yeah. When people hear someone else's boundary, they see it as an attack towards them.
I'm breaking up with you.
Yeah, basically. I think this is what people think when they set
Changing
boundaries.
Facebook relationship status. Hej och välkomna till ännu ett avsnitt av Coffee and Confidence podcast. Mitt namn är Nathalie Rajic, jag är din confidence coach men även grundare av Herway och hostess till den här podcasten. Där vi pratar om alla saker som handlar om självutveckling. Det bjuder in olika intressanta personer för att prata om olika delar som kan bidra till att du har en bättre relation till dig själv och lever det livet som du önskar att leva. Och idag så har jag bjudit in en spännande gäst som arbetar som higher self coach och mentor. Hon har en väldigt bred, holistisk och spirituell erfarenhet och jag bjuds in henne idag för att prata om självutveckling och hur man kan sätta hälsosamma gränser för sig själv. Very welcome, Veronica Malm.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I get so giggly around you. So I told Julia, the one doing all the editing and the shooting for this podcast, I told her just when we were entering the studio, I told her, yeah, okay, I called Veronica last Friday and we were supposed to talk for just...
like 15 minutes or something?
Yeah, just an introduction call. And we ended up speaking 3 hours to each other, like exchanging life scenarios and journeys. And it was so fun because it was an intense talk, but also a lot of playfulness.
Yeah.
It was nice to
This is why I loved with your energy as well, because directly it was like, yes, you had the structure and had all this stuff and everything you were doing, but it was like super playful, super funny. And
it's
then
Aries
like,
with the Gemini, as we said.
Like an hour in, we're like, wait, what star sign are you? And you're like, Aries, Leo. And I'm like, Gemini and Aquarius. Like,
yeah, it's perfect match.
Just fire and wind creating this like...
yeah, like a tornado.
Yeah, I love it. And it was great that we had that conversation as well, though, because like you said, since everything I'm doing is quite like wide, like there's a wide spectrum of what I do, that really helped us narrow in specifically what we should be talking about.
Yeah.
And the whole part about talking about boundaries and setting boundaries is like super important, specifically now, as I said before, for the holiday season.
Yeah,
it can
definitely
be good just hearing some personal stories for people to listen into and know what it entails to set boundaries and not having that fear around it.
Yeah.
Because I always say it's a big part within people's journey, actually, of becoming their higher self, learning. Because once you come to a place where you're connecting deeper within yourself and going through childhood traumas and all this type of things, this is what a lot of people don't think about, is the fact that a lot of the reason we have a problem setting boundaries now as adults is because of things that happened when we were younger. And we telling our parents like, no, I don't want this, or telling adults like, no, and they're like, get over this, and no. And already there you're learning like, oh no, if I say this, then I'm being
adapt
a bother
yourself.
And people aren't gonna like me, I'm not gonna fit in, and it's kind of in human nature to want to fit in, you know? So it's like, it's a good conversation to have at this point, I feel like.
Yeah, and the thing that surprises me still is that when you start your self journey, start working on yourself, nobody tells about the self boundaries thing, you know, because that's such a huge part of being in alignment with yourself and listening within. It's to set healthy boundaries.
Exactly.
That can also be very... difficult when you have to set healthy boundaries for people that you love or you care for, you know?
Exactly.
And it can be sensitive as well. And
yes, I know, like, even within my whole journey from myself, right? Because like I said when we spoke on the phone, right? I feel like what happens a lot, specifically within the spiritual and holistic field, is that a lot of people go to study something and then they go to teach before they take care of their own things. Yeah. Like, I've spent the past 10 years of really going deep within it. I didn't even take paid from a client for like 5 years. I would be working but not taking paid because it just didn't feel correct to do so. But yeah, like you said, it's one of these things that we learn how to as well, like put on these masks for for other people, which it's easier for ourselves to understand, like, okay, yeah, I put this mask on, this is myself, but this is what I do around people. But then to go deeper and say why and what you do with yourself, right? The self-talk as well.
Yeah.
And where that plays a role and where that derived from. I know, for example, with me, with my hair, for example, I went almost 10 years of my life not having my hair natural.
Oh, really?
Like fully from maybe like 12, 13, I stopped. Like I would always have braids or have a weave or straighten my hair. I would like not leave the house. I wouldn't go to school if it was curly. There was like no way I'd leave. No. And I realized after maybe I would think I was about like 19, then I started to slowly have my hair natural again. But I had to basically do again what I did when I was younger. So when I was little, like I said, I created kind of this more social personality.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when I was little, I'm a social introvert. So like if I'm around people, I'm super social, I'm talkative, and it can go for like 2-3 days, and then I need like 3 weeks to recuperate.
Go back to your cave.
Yeah, my little isolation cave with my little dog, living my best life. Great, you know? This is why, like you said, with Instagram, there's like a part of me there, but also not too much, because I never wanted to be almost like too much there, so it felt like an anxiety that I have to like be too much online all the time. And
you
I
can control it.
Yeah, I can post some quotes and be online every day without being online every day, you know, without seeing. But yeah, so basically when I was little, I remember setting boundaries a lot, specifically within my hair, because I'm still like raised in a very Swedish area. So we were raised like in a villaområde, and it was only Swedish people. Even in my school, it was an international school, so we had kids from everywhere.
Okay.
But I realized this on the bus on the way here. I was like, well, there was no black people. Like, my family was like the mixed race family, like in that sense. Everyone else, there was like Japanese and India and England and the States, but it was more light-skinned people, so to speak. So I always stuck out a lot. I was the only one in the school who had curly hair. Yeah. Because even my brothers kind of have like, their hair falls down. I call it like South Italian, like Egyptian, like Arabic,
the waves.
big wavy thick curls, you know, but like I was the only one who has like a full-on fro, right? Like that sticks up. And I remember always like people would always be touching my hair and touching my head, and I tell them to stop, and like I didn't like it. And people were almost, it was like very gaslighty actually, because they'd be like, well, what do you expect? It's different. It's fluffy, it's so soft. Like, of course, people are gonna wanna touch it, right? And it did like years and years. I remember protesting because I was like very me when I was even like a kid. Yeah. Like old soul directly. I went to the principal's office at like 4, like, these kids who are 14 are touching my hair. It's not okay. And they're like, yeah, I get it. And they tried to like talk about it, but it was still like always a thing. So I realized very early on, like I kind of had to develop a personality to accept it, because it was like, or I get upset every time, and people are going to start to think that I'm like a negative, angry person, when I knew I wasn't. I was like super happy in this, but just because I had this boundary, that was like a projection other people did for their own, let's say, lack of knowledge within different cultures and races, that got projected onto me rather than them understanding that, oh, this is a boundary for her, right?
Okay.
So I think when I was around like 12, 13, I was just like, you know what? No, screw it. Now I'm like a teenager. I can do what I want with my hair. I was allowed to dye it and do whatever. So I started like that whole thing. And I said that was like a process for like 10 years. I'd never had my hair curly until when I was like about 19. And it was a whole thing again, because then I kind of had to learn again to get back this character again. Because even as an adult, I'd be telling people like, no, don't touch my hair. And it was just like, oh, what are you saying? Like, it is soft, It is here. Like, I've had situations where I'm like walking down, when I lived in London, I'm like walking downtown in the middle of the day, just like walking. Yeah. And like when people tell me like, oh, I love your hair, you have nice hair, it would directly like gives me like low-key anxiety, because I know that now the next thing that always follows it has always been, can I touch it? Throughout my life. And people would be like, oh, that's that person or that person. I'm like, I feel like about like 10,000 people throughout my life have like asked to touch my hair. I've even said no, and they touch it anyways. Or at one point or the other, they still like give that reach out, but like, oh, just little, or like just the tips, or we'll just like come behind me when they're giving me a hug and then like grab my hair, right? He gets an opportunity to like now touch my hair quickly, right? And I've been walking down the street, and like I've said no to strangers, right? And as I'm walking down the street, people are still like touching my hair.
That's
right?
really crazy.
And when I would talk about these things to people or people I know, they'd again be kind of like gaslight, like, no, that's not how it is. You're probably like overreacting and all this stuff. So yeah, during this whole like healings time, I would say about when I was 26 and I got my Reiki master degree and all these type of things, that's when I was like, no, enough is enough. Like, this is not cool. Because I would always talk about like for feminism and about race and all these type of things.
Yeah.
But the topic of my hair, I knew was always going to be like, oh, but it's so soft and you know. But I was just like, no, enough is enough. People need to understand the conversation. And I feel like it was around the time where it was like Me Too was happening. People were understanding now. Now women as well and men were starting to understand like a female experience. And they're open to hearing this. So I was like, okay, finally, let's see if they can understand. The example I would use was kind of like, yeah, well, think about like women in the office in the 70s, right? Or like in the 60s. And she's maybe like curvaceous, right? She has like nice boobs and like and here she is with her curves, right? And a tight dress. And men would just like slap her ass, right? And like give her hugs and like this type of stuff that went down on the daily and still kind of does in many countries. I lived in Spain and Italy. It's very much part of the culture still.
It is, unfortunately.
Like fully, you know? You can just like kind of laugh if you want to live there and like adapt to it and slowly learn. But I was just like 10 years as well living in those countries. I feel like anytime I had like too much wine or something, there was like a whole like conversation towards the men. Like they got like a whole little seminar about like how they should be treating women and how what they're doing with misogynists.
And I bet you got like someone told you that you were complicated
Always.
Or something.
I'm being a feminist, I'm being this, like as if it's something negative.
Yeah.
And in regards to the hair with women, I'd be like, no, but listen, like literally what you're saying is that this is my personal space. I'm setting a boundary saying no. And you're saying because it's different and you want to touch it because you think it looks nice to touch, you're going to cross that boundary to touch it. And they're like, oh, wow, like I never thought of it this way. I'm like, yeah, it's exactly like women maybe in the office would be like, look, I'm your CEO, don't like do this. And then men would be like, but you know, why are you walking around with that fat ass? Like, kind of a thing, you know?
With your curves.
Yeah, and it's actually been a good thing in the sense because people have now started to understand when I explain it this way. It's sad that it has to be explained that way, but it's at least helped people open their eyes a little bit more to it. Because I feel like when it comes to boundaries specifically, there's this feeling that when people hear someone else's boundary, they see it as an attack towards them.
Exactly.
And like they're doing something wrong. And now I'm like pointing out something they're doing.
Yeah, they feel offended.
Yeah. And when the boundary has actually nothing to do with the other people, it's about the person saying their boundary. It's a boundary is your personal feeling, your personal emotion, your personal thoughts, your personal belief.
Yeah.
And stating that this is what I feel. And you can either respect that or not. But you not respecting that is you crossing a boundary. You can't in this like whole, not even in this world or society, but like in the universe, right? There is no right and wrong. There are right and wrong, of course, but in the human experience and when you're actually like in this state of consciousness, you have to understand that everyone's lived different lives. Everyone has different journeys. They've come here for different reasons. People can be raised exactly the same way in the same environment and have completely different boundaries and what they accept and don't accept.
Yeah.
And they're like, when I'm teaching people with this type of things with my clients, then we go into from astrology. This is why I feel like it's always important to understand these things because I know my boundaries as well have evolved, right? Something that I used to see as a hard boundary now, not so much because I realized, oh, this was me. Like, this was my Scorpio moon being like, no, like, attack. Like, oh, well, this is my sexuality or was my trauma response to something. But now when I've healed that trauma, this is no longer now a trigger.
Yeah.
But again, it shouldn't matter when someone states what they're feeling or a boundary. I feel like the important message is now specifically for the holidays, I would say like to let people know within your family and your friends and stuff like this, be like, hey, by the way, I'm coming to this dinner and I'm so excited to see all you guys. And just so you know, like I've been working on myself and these things and I realized that I have this boundary towards this or this triggers me. Like I know maybe it doesn't make sense to you, and it's all respect. It's not about you guys do you. And it's kind of formulating it in that type of a way rather than, hey, mom, you do this every day. Or like, oh, my brother's wife always says this and it's so, no, don't come. We're all humans. We're all having our different mindsets.
Yeah.
No one is, yes, there are people being mean on purpose, but in general, there's something deeper there. And even if someone's being mean on purpose, that's their projection. That's their inner child trying to protect themselves.
Yes.
And there is this whole like self-love of being a better, bigger person, right? And realizing that's just a lack maybe of their own self-awareness to why they're doing it or their own defense mechanism.
Yeah.
But you daring to set your boundary, even though the first time it might create some situation or some weird emotions towards it, with time it's going to be something that that person's respecting on you.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they see it and realize, oh, this is not personal, it's not just me, it's just how this person can function and being their most balanced and happy self in their own journey, it shifts dramatically. Like so much. I know even with my family too, with my brother and there, because I know how I was when I was younger, right? They're still basing a version of me from when I was like 15. I left Sweden when I was like 17. I've been abroad, right? I came back to Sweden once or twice a year, specifically for the holidays or something like this. I would say I was never back for more than 2 weeks in total from the year, right? I come for a weekend and here and there. So, of course, people still have versions of you in their head, right? And it's always about kind of realizing, yeah, but they also have this old version of you. And sometimes it's also sad for people to see that you're no longer that person.
Yeah, because it's telling them something.
Yeah.
In themselves.
Yes.
Like, okay, she's evolving or he's evolving.
Exactly.
Where am I?
Yeah.
And such.
How am I the same, or who are they now thinking that they're better than me because they're evolving, and like what? Like, I'm okay, I don't need to evolve. And
Yeah.
it becomes a personal dialogue.
Yeah, and that's also one really interesting thing when you're investing in yourself, in your self-development journey, that people will look at you differently. You will feel lonely.
Yeah.
We talked about it before in this
Yes.
podcast, like how I felt so lonely when I was fully investing myself in my own journey.
Yeah.
So many people not being there anymore, you
Yeah.
know, because you're not that version anymore.
Exactly.
that
And
you
people
used
have
to
a hard
be.
time to accept that.
Exactly. Or not setting healthy boundaries, like telling them, hey, I don't like when you're telling me this or this, and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's like what we talked about as well, like on our conversation, how I was telling you how, yes, I've been super isolated when I came back here, and I was like, oh, but these people, like, there's all love. I just like feel like, no, but it's not the same vibe anymore, and where I want to be going right now, this is going to be holding me back.
Yeah.
Right? And it's this too, where we're understanding energy and frequency is everything. It's not like, oh, anyone's better than someone else.
No,
it just has to
exactly.
do with what matches your frequency for the alignment and where you're going forward and how you're moving forward. And like this, like sometimes it's not, I tell people all the time, where they're like, oh, but this friend or this family member, and I'm like, I've known them all my life. And I'm like, well, number one, it doesn't either have to be that harsh where you're like writing this big letter, like, we can no longer be
breaking
friends.
up with you.
Yeah, basically. I think this is what people think when they set
Changing
boundaries.
Facebook relationship status.
Blocking everybody. Like, no, like,
No.
it's just letting, like, as well, like, after you speak to someone, or you don't even have to, you can know within yourself, like, just where I always explain it kind of like circles. You have your inner circle, and this doesn't have to be. I think people as well think their inner circle is their best friend from all life and their family because of that reason, when it has nothing to do with that. Like, you can meet someone yesterday and like literally be like, this person is my new inner circle, like, person.
Yeah.
And these other people who used to be in my inner circle either get moved down a little bit or even really far back, and just coming up kind of like, look, no, I'm really busy now, or I'm working a lot myself. I've been very like, I'm in my own mood, or I'm working on my own projects or my own self. That's why you've been seeing me so much. Because who knows? Like, I always say, like, I prefer to do that first.
Yeah.
Then after some time, then you see a friend again a couple times, and you realize it's still like really not going, or they start to project onto you something. That's when maybe, okay, it's a
situation
time to
then.
finish that friendship officially, or like not even have them in the circle group, so to speak. Like, yes, you see them out and about, you can say hi and whatnot, but you're not going to be interacting with them in that way to take like a fika or something, right? To have coffee out and about. Well, some people surprise you, right? Like, some people, they start to project, and it can go 1-2 years, and then in 2 years time, during that time, they realize, oh, wait, I was maybe projecting a little bit here. This was my inner child that, like, oh, my mom, no one listened to her boundaries. So like I felt now I was being attacked and I think she was judging me like my dad used to judge me, right? And it's this, and they can come back full circle, and all of a sudden someone you placed in a far circle can come back into the inner circle, which is like a beautiful thing to happen.
Right.
Because I think subconsciously as well, it's like specifically online, maybe a lot like what I know, at least with the girls I know, like women are like, we're like investigators, we know stuff, you know what I mean? And like we know we're like
investigators.
we're like low-key investigators, you know what I mean? It's like if you know that you're dating someone or your friend says something about someone, like you're gonna have all the information, or like get super excited, like no way, no, let me just check here, let me just look here, and like comment any red flags. We're like super open about it now, which is actually a beautiful thing, because it's like, this is how it is. I see it in nature as well. Like women are always together. Like we should have this sisterhood. We should have this unity.
Yeah.
And that's what makes us live longer, what aids society to advance.
Yeah.
I feel like this isolation of women, even like this whole propaganda over like what thousands of years of like, or hundreds of years of like, yeah, but she should be at home as the wife and yeah, but you're actually isolating women to not do anything and not be collective. Which makes them not be able to talk about stuff,
Right.
We can advance.
That's how we were created, to live in community and help each other and ventilate stuff.
Exactly, and we go
exchange,
forward. Yeah.
How has your journey been? Like you were sharing that, like ignoring setting the boundaries during your teenage years and then getting back to it. Like, how did you fully dare to stand in your light and just say like, hey, this is me, all I am, and this is who I am, and you can do this or this?
In regards to like the hair specifically there, because this was the first time as well, the first place I lived.
How old were you
I
back
was, I think I lived in London 2000. I must have been, I'm like, I must have been 26. 26 to 28, 26 to 27. I lived there a year and a half. So I feel like I came there 26. Yes, 26 for sure. Yeah, because I came there in July, so I just turned 26. But this was the first place I lived where I felt so, like where I fit in fully.
Okay.
Like I've been to Brazil a lot before because like an ex-boyfriend was from Brazil. So there as well when I was like in Sao Paulo and stuff, this was like amazing. It's like all three of us here could be like from Sao Paulo, right? It's super mixed.
Yeah.
And I felt like in London it was the first time I saw like on the tube there would be like 5 other people like my skin color as well with my hair, because that's also I think something that has made people not hear my boundary and respect the fact that it could be coming as well from on their sides, and the lack of understanding of race and racism and the hair and what the hair what it symbolizes specifically for the Black community and for like mixed race people who are part Black, and what the whole history is behind hair, and the sensitivity to that subject and why, because I'm very light skinned, right? Like fully they'd be like, oh, but what? You're white, like you're not mixed race, you're not having this experience, like that's not why. Fully. Literally, I feel like the last time I heard this was like 2 months ago. Like, it's like a very constant thing. But I feel like, yes, because I came to that space where I was like around people as well like this. But then I started going into it a bit more. And I realized that what I was doing when I was like, oh yeah, you can touch my hair. So this was my like defense mechanism to like survive. Basically, I would just be like, when people are like, nice hair, I'm like, yes, it's super soft. Do you want to touch it? Straight off the back. I offered. Would make it like this whole thing like, yeah, it's super soft.
To make them happy or just
basically,
to make them satisfied.
If no, it's like I'm stating a boundary, then I'm being disrespected, and that, and that was a totally different energy. And then they're seeing that, and it becomes, the energy was shift between people in the room and how they perceived me and the whole situation. We're out in a club having a good time. Now people are offended just because I'm setting a boundary, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So I would just be like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, it's super like fluffy, like haha, it's so like nice. But if you're anyways gonna touch it, go in and touch it. So I get like a little head massage. Yeah, of course, it's like like this, right? But it was there when I was realizing, no, but I'm also very, let's say, blessed in that way within the fact that I have, or not blessed is the wrong word. I'm lucky in the sense that I'm able to change. And adapt my race if I want to in society. Right? So if I put on straight hair, all of a sudden I can be from somewhere else. Like people would never correlate that I'm mixed race if they don't see my hair. Because as well, like my face itself is actually exactly like my Cuban family. Like my Afro-Cuban family, we all have like tiny noses because there's also like Vietnamese and again, Africa's a whole continent. You know what I mean? Everyone looks different. They're different countries. Like, so all like my great grandfather's like super, super dark skin, but he has like a tiny nose, small little like eyes, tiny lips. But I realized that I have the ability to, yes, change my hair if I want to and not be judged for it or thought as less, right? Like I said, like all my life, I was raised in quite upper class, like in that sense. But anyways, I'd go to like an event or I was in Milan going to a thing. But my boyfriends back in the day, I always like had like a tall like model guy, you know, maybe like some blonde dude or something like yes. Everyone, the energy would always be like, I'm the Brazilian girlfriend or something like this, right? Like I'm the now escorty girl because I'm like mixed and they're fully in Spain, Italy, a lot like this.
The exotic.
Yeah, here in Sweden as well. If I go to place, if they didn't know me and I'd go to a new place, the reaction of like the Swedish people there is kind of like, oh, she's probably like from Rosengård, right? Or something like directly like, no, I cannot be of class because I'm mixed, you know? But I realized other people don't have the privilege of just like, you know, the hair is a whole thing. And that if a black woman wants to walk around with her hair curly, she's receiving even more crossing of boundaries, more disrespect, more misassumptions about who she is and her like worth or anything like this due to the fact of the color of her skin and all this type of things, because it's just like, unfortunately, it's the truth about society, right? Like still. So I realized, well, if I'm experiencing so much judgment, so much being put in categories, and so much lack of boundaries, lack of respect and understanding, I'm making it harder and worse actually for other black women and darker skinned women who want to have their hair natural. Because I'm here now, like, protecting myself, being like, yeah, touch it. But knowing that actually annoys me so much and hurts me so much every time someone has to be touching my hair or not listening to my
going
boundary.
Against yourself.
Yeah, and it's very deep-rooted, again, if we think about the history within race. It's a big thing. Like, it's not like black women just were like, oh, I don't like my hair, now I'm going to have straight hair. It was about... It's like we say, it's not appropriation, it's assimilation. Assimilation is doing something to be able to fit in society, like in a means to survive and be accepted, right? And it's been a whole movement to have your hair natural, for women to be natural and have their natural curls or their natural fro. And even though I felt like, yes, I'm here promoting this and I'm natural and my hair's been natural now for like 6 years, 7 years, I realized, but at the same time, I'm almost going against it by allowing people to be like touching my hair.
Yeah.
Specifically for the reason that it's different, right? And that's when I was just like, no, like enough is enough. This is not okay. I think it's same like, yes, like I said before, it's like when women back in the day were like, okay, they accepted it because it was the office. They had no voice to it.
Yeah.
To some women in the end of the day, be like, no, this is sexual harassment. Like this is crossing a boundary. Yeah. It's not cool. You need to stop. And not letting other guys do it, even if they're their friends or whatever. Just like, this is not okay. And I felt like if I've come here with these understandings of how to deal with my trauma, how to be healing and all this type of things, it felt almost like irresponsible. And also, how is a collective going to wake up or go forward, or another person who's just maybe more super shy and not so outspoken and to voice up about these type of things if I'm not able to voice up about the things, right? So it kind of became this thing where I knew I love myself. I love my ancestors, my history, every part of what makes me me. And I need to honor that fully. And in doing so, that is setting boundaries, because it's not fair that I'm out, and to make everybody else happy, I'm going to then dim my light, make myself feel bad, so that when I go home, I might have anxiety or depression some days because I felt violated that people were touching my hair. Because this is something I'd say a lot to people too, and especially with hair, because I feel like women understand it a little bit better. But I tell men all the time, like, yeah, but how often, even people in general, just like, how often, who has touched your hair? Like, who has touched your hair?
Yeah.
Like, who in your life? It's normally a romantic partner or a lover, a super best friend, family member, that's it. Like you're not
It's
having
intimate.
like your friends. Yeah, it's an intimate thing. And as well that on an energetic standpoint, this is where it's our crown chakra. It's our connectivity to the spiritual for our aura to connect ourselves as well. It goes out and then within. So like someone doing this is constantly putting their energy onto your most, let's say, vulnerable energy point, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah. There's an old saying from different cultures saying like, don't ever let someone touch your hair because of the energy as well that they can put bad
Literally,
energy in
yes,
you.
Exactly. And this was a big thing because my mom told me all my life, but I think when I was little I was like, yeah, right, like
Really?
whatever.
Yeah.
Right, she would put like the little red bracelets on and all the stuff that I have to do.
Okay.
Today, it was actually quite funny that I took mine off today. Yeah, because I don't know, I felt like
Because
nah.
it's a safe space.
Yeah,
here.
I was like, it's a safe space, it's fine, you know. Like, but even there, I had like an actual bracelet, and now when I was in Milan last time, okay, so we don't go into a full story. I had a situation happen right, with a taxi driver. It was a whole thing. Like I got attacked, but I defended myself, so great. But I went then to Milan just to be around friends. Since here I was like more in an insulation, like isolated mode. I used to live there for like 7-8 years, so I have a lot of friends there. So I thought, let me go there and I'll hang out with my friends. Whilst there, like 2 of my closest friends, I actually now have had to put them in a different place. Like I've always been there for them under like 10 years time, always there through losses of family members from work and like big situations in their life. And I feel like people are used to me always coming positive and this, and if I'm upset, it's really like, it's very rare that I do. And before it would be more like I defend my friends than myself, right, in this way. Like if you're out in a party and some dude is like trying to, you know, I'd be like, no, right? Like I'm a little meanie me and I'm just like, no, this isn't okay. But there I came and I was talking about all this type of stuff, and they knew as well I came there for support. And then it was almost like one day I was a little bit upset, and it was like they thought it was upset with me or with them, and they actually made distance from me. And was like, oh, but you've been like this these days and you haven't really been yourself. I'm like, that's the whole point why I'm here, because I don't feel like myself. I'm like sad. I went through something super traumatic. Like I'm here to have support and love, and you guys are here judging me on it. And the funny thing in regards to the bracelet though is because this bracelet broke. I've had this bracelet for like 15 years.
Wow.
15 years I've had this bracelet. I'm like taking it off if I've been in a party, like never broken, right? It's like a little elastic with like these little stones on it, all in red. And literally the first 2 days I was there, it just broke. And I was feeling as well this energies, and then this broke, and I was like, you know, like
Tells a lot.
and I'm like, time to do a little ritual, time to protect the space. I like always bring sage and the stuff with me in my travels, but like there I started, and at one point after like 2-3 days, because I was like still giving them the space, because as well during this time I was still helping my friends with their own things. And they're like, oh, but you know how to deal with anger, and I never see you angry, so like let me, you know, help with this. And they wanted a session, but then they had to like change their diet for this, because my friend's diet specifically was very much like coffee and always like it's always wine every day and like spicy foods and all this. Basically it makes sense, it creates fire in the body. And when you have a lot of fire, yes, side effects in that sense, just on an emotional level, will be like need of control and having everything like hyper perfect and anger. So I was like, look, if we're going to do this session, we can, but it's just like a surgery, right? You can go and maybe get like Botox or something. You don't need to like prepare a week before or days before to go get like an injection. But if you're going to do a surgery, you're going to do it like a face surgery. You might have to go a couple days or for preparing, and you don't eat for a day before, and you don't drink water before the surgery, right? And this is the same with diet. There's like before a healing
You're talking
session,
about the Ayurvedic
yes
diet.
So there I'm like vibing off the person. If it's just a normal Reiki session, cool, nothing particular normally needs to be done. But the session we were going to do was a very like, it's cellular molecular release, which is basically opening up. This can be from ancestral things, so you're going into literally the DNA in your molecular system and structure and opening this, because now it's no longer your mind, it's no longer about your body, it's not about you in this life now, it's about the energy that's in your actual cells and how to release this. So it's a very intense healing session. I'm like, of course someone could drink before, and it's just, it feels irresponsible on my end. I've never been able, like no one can ever pay me to do something. I say no, it's no. now when I'm saying that, by the way, side note, I'm realizing that's actually a big thing that helped me learn to set my boundaries, was in regards to the respect of my work with this. Because before it was just healing, or I was just doing meditation and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But once I started getting paid, I was like, no, this is what's needed. Because unfortunately in society as well, if I'd be a therapist, or if I was a psychologist and a medical doctor, again, like totally different thing. Because in society there's like, oh yeah, but if something happens, that's the patient's fault. Well, as soon as you're in alternative medicine, in natural medicine, natural diets, and all these type of things, it's all of a sudden the full fault of the practitioner. And I would say, like, if we're working on a deep rooted trauma, someone suppressed something, they maybe got abused as a child, they don't remember it, but it's there, right? And then I already know before this is what's going to come out. So I have to prepare them, being like, okay, but 3 days moving forward now,
Skip
you
this.
know, you can't have work, you have to do this on a day off, or like make sure this is this, because I know it can be super heavy and the body needs to rest as well. This is where maybe sometimes diet comes in. If someone has a diet where they're smoking a lot, drinking a lot of coffee, or having anger issues, or actually they have depression and anxiety issues, well, then we need to make sure to be eating grounding foods, right? Be making sure to, like, rather than just putting on hudcreme, like skin cream and lotion, we're going to heat up a little coconut every day, coconut oil, and you're going to put on warm coconut oil on your body to warm up the system and relax the nervous system prior to doing this intense thing, right? So wait, I think I sidetracked a little bit, right? This had to do with the bracelet, that had to do with the friend, which had to do with me setting boundaries to them. Yeah, so when I was there, so basically after me waiting a couple of days, the bracelet had broken, and me talking a little bit with her, or I just came basically up to her and gave her a hug, and she was like very cold. And I was like, just started to cry. And she was like, what's happening? Why are you like this? And I explained, like, yes, but you know, I was here for this, and you being so distant, like, is everything okay? She's like, no, but you seem to be off. So I thought you needed space, so I gave you space. And I was like, yes, but I've expressed to you, I'm here because I need your love. I need, like, if no, I'd be home now with my dog. You know, I'm here because I need your support. I need your love. Like, I know I'm off. You know what I mean? That's why I'm here. From there, she was like, what? Okay, let's go take a walk together. We went and had a walk. We were able to have a nice talk about it, which was really beautiful, because I feel like that was necessary, because I was literally in the space where I was like, no, I'm going to take an Airbnb and leave her place, because it just didn't feel like she wasn't being like a friend, you know, in that sense. From, again, noting that I'd already expressed what I needed multiple times before arriving and when there. And this was what was unfortunate in the end. Like, I'm very, like, positive. I see the situation for what it is. I know she's not on her best self right now, and not in her own balance. So I'm hoping that moving forward, I've still helped her with the diet. I've still helped with this. I helped with a cleaning session for her. I did, like, evil eye protection, everything for her. And again, love and light outwards, and I'm hoping that she'll be able to come back in. But for me, that was a big boundary, for example. I'm like, no longer am I going to be here. There's giving and giving and giving to people, because it's almost like an issue with empaths in general, that we give and give because we understand and we feel, but then you're taking from yourself. And I'm like, no, this is no longer in alignment. Like, we're all people. Hopefully she'll be able to come up and meet me here. But right now, unfortunately, I have to leave this here, because if no, it's pulling me down. And it was a hard thing. And even they're setting the boundary, she's understood it too, because I was just super, super nice, accepting. But the last days I was seeing her less, and I was making it less of a thing to hang out with her. Because I was just like, no, look, this is how I feel. I had a whole conversation with her. I let it all out. And there was a little bit of projections on her to me. And it made me really sad, because I'm like, look, you know me for 10 years, and you're saying now that you think this of me? She's like, yeah, but you can give advice, but you don't take advice. She actually calls me, like, she's also a paying client of mine, so she gets help from me in this way. And when she calls, she'll say something like this, like, oh yeah, I need help with this. And then I give my advice with something, so that she was projecting that on, like, you don't hear me. I'm like, no, but when I talk to you, I say I need someone to hear me. I already know what to do. I just need to be heard. But I'm hoping that moving forward, she'll come back around, because again, we knew each other for 10 years. But it's like I said, with setting boundaries, it is a bittersweet thing. It's something that's beautiful, but like you said before as well, it can be extremely isolating.
Yeah.
But it's about like holding on. Like, hold on, y'all. Like, you literally might take a couple days, weeks, or months without that same system of people around you.
Yeah.
But more times than less, what will happen is that all of a sudden the right people start flowing into your life.
Yeah.
And it's always better to have one person that respects your boundary and knows you than having 10 people around you.
And I also like often feel like when you start to set healthy boundaries, it gets easier by time.
Yes.
So if you start
Literally.
by telling it to
I'm just like, no.
yeah, but the thing is that when you're the one setting like very, what is it called, like obvious boundaries for yourself, then you often portrait it as the troublemaker, you know, because she's like this, or she's a troublemaker, or she's always saying what she thinks.
Yes,
or
I
blah,
would say
blah,
it's,
blah,
it's
blah,
good
blah.
to be like, be okay with being the villain.
Yeah.
This was a big thing for me in 2023, because I used to think like villain is this, no, and I'm like, no, it's like fully okay. I have no problem being the villain in other people's story, because the people who know me and will vibe with me.
Yeah.
People are always going to talk about you. Rather, you can be perfect, quote unquote, always happy, always this, and take everyone's shit, right? Like, but in the end of the day, there's always going to be someone to say something. Even if you're super nice to everyone, there's going to be someone like, well, why is she so happy all the time? Like, why is it? So why not just be yourself and make sure you're in a space where you're comfortable, you're happy, set those boundaries. No, people have their own thing. Whatever they're projecting normally has to do with them. And as long as you're in a place of self-awareness and self-love, which, like, check out all our other episodes because they go through this, and working on this.
Yeah. And what's interesting as well is that if everyone's satisfied with you, you're doing something wrong as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Because you can never like everyone. Like, not everyone can like you. I think this was a big thing for me as well throughout my life, just being like, no, you're not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. I'm not going to take away my light or dim my light to adapt someone else. Like, some people are more like introverted and like, ooh, they like, gossiping and stuff, and that's their vibe. Like, live their best life. Like, go and spill the tea and talk shit. Like, if that, you do you.
And I think as soon as you come to realize this, it gets easier to just accept yourself and like, okay, I'm on this journey. I'm doing this for myself.
Exactly.
Explaining myself also, like, hey, I need to do this in order to da-da-da.
Yes. And this actually aids you to stay in alignment and stay as your highest self.
Yeah.
Because once we dim our self-light or adapt to other people, this is when you're not living in your highest potential, because you're constantly needing to just not be you. And it also doesn't give you the space to actually be you. And like we touched up quickly upon, it was like that most people say that they don't have time, right? Or they don't have time to work on themselves. But if one thinks about how much time one will have, if you realize, if you're able to set boundaries, you basically start to receive more time for yourself as well, because you're not wasting time or energy adapting or making other people happy, or taking it personally that this person says this, realizing, okay, this person thinks this of me and doesn't see me for this. Great. Well, then I'll place them over here. They don't need to know everything about my life. They can know this and this. Nice and cordial, love and light always. Like we say, someone gives you love, you give them love back. Someone gives you hate, you give them double the love. But that doesn't mean you need to stay. That means you can take a step back, have nothing but good intention towards them, but realizing that you putting yourself first in the sense of love, what's best for your mental health and emotional state, is the best thing, and you're going to attract the right people and be able to like actually stay in full alignment with yourself and keep on progressing forward in this journey of life.
Beautiful. That's such a great end of this beautiful conversation, and thank you so much.
Thank you
so much for sharing your journey and being so open and honest about what you experienced and how you set healthy boundaries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Of course.
So
and
fun.
I know we're gonna get together
so we're
soon
still
again.
having our coffee in a couple days, and we're gonna end up taking our coffee for like 5 hours.
And it's gonna be 5 hours. Yeah, most definitely. The coffee is going to get cold.
Yeah, it's gonna end up being like a coffee and a lunch for sure. Like, it's better to set it up that way.
Right? I'm so happy you wanted to join the Coffee and Confidence podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Jag hoppas att det här avsnittet av Coffee and Confidence podcast har inspirerat dig till att våga sätta mer hälsosamma gränser. Våga lyssna inåt. Våga vara den där villain eller troublemakern. Du gör det för dig själv. För att våga vara dig själv fullt ut och leva i linje med allt det som du drömmer om. Och det innebär ibland att man behöver göra saker som känns lite läskigt. Men jag tror på dig och det ska bli så fint att få höra responsen kring vad du tycker om det här avsnittet. Glöm inte att prenumerera på Coffee and Confidence podcast så att du inte missar nästa spännande avsnitt med våra kommande gäster. Och är det så att du vill bjuda in lite mer motivation, du känner att du är redo att kickstarta det här nya året med ny energi, då skulle jag vilja rekommendera dig att ladda ner Her Way app som är min mental fitness app. Det är en app som motiverar dig dagligen till att vara den bästa versionen av dig själv. Du kan lyssna till motiverande samtal, coachinginspelningar. Du kan också göra olika övningar och practices där du får helt enkelt checka in med dig själv, ta tempen på dig själv och kunna motivera dig till att vara allt det du drömmer om. För jag vill se dig grow and glow.
Setting boundaries to them.
Yeah. It's escaping. Don't worry, we can cut that.
Yay!